Alright, hell yeah. So this video is going to be about R1 boat design. And I think I just kind of lucked out with this NRS. It's a Revolution series. They don't make it. It's discontinued. What it does have is the ability to get onto an edge. So we're going to take a look at that. The floor, I would say, is protruded. The floor is lower than the outer tubes. And so when I sit on the outer tube, it gives you that, what in kayakers terms, that would be like your secondary edge. You know what I mean? A stable position where you're leaning onto edge. And what that does is it really reduces the surface tension, and every paddle stroke just feels pretty easy. So paddling around a lake in this is pretty fun. And we're going to see some of the advantages of it. We have a lot of clips to look at. So this is the Tributary 9.5. Now you can see that the outside tube is out of the water, but because the floor probably doesn't have like a rounded design side to side, rocker side to side, it's still just a little bit slower. So this boat definitely feels super slow. So we're going to watch this one more time, and then we're going to watch the RMR Fat Cat. So now I'm paddling slow right here, but it just shows you the difference where if I'm just sitting on the outside, the ability for that boat to get up onto edge to really reduce that surface tension. Now this is the RMR Fat Cat. This would be a great R2. R1, it's a big boat, it can punch through things. Now it can get up to speed, but it is a little bit of a bear to R1. So that's what some people say, and I would agree. Paddling around a lake is a chore, and you know what I mean? There's not a lot of magic in it. It's difficult to turn, so I'm just trying to practice turning it. Yeah, so that's kind of my take-home point for, you know what I mean? I'd be looking at getting like a shredder. So again, we're going to compare that to this boat. And hell yeah, you can just get it really high onto edge, and yeah, just really, it looks light, you know what I mean? And I've modified this where it's not a light boat per se, it's urethane, so that it definitely came in about 60 pounds. Okay, so now what we're going to look at is, this is a bigger tributary, this is just a bigger boat, water in the floor. What I'm showing here is this boat doesn't buck. So it's at Kelly's Surf Wave in Cascade, Idaho, and what we don't see is it just bucking vertical. Like people aren't even high siding that effective, and it's still just along for the ride. So now we're going to look at an RMR. This is similar to my boat, you know what I mean? Boats that don't take water in the floor. Now water is coming in over the tubes, so there might be a little bit more physics going on here. But this thing just really wants to buck totally vertical. And so that might be more, you know what I mean? The tubes are lower than the floor, where if you do have water in the floor in the airboats, it can lower that center of gravity, actually physically lower the floor. And that's what we're going to show right here. So here's an empty boat, and it's very easy to tip. We're going to show this a couple times. And now I'm going to throw just a bag of water in the front. I do this for some of the stouter runs that I do. Hell yeah, it's just way more difficult to tip over. So that's going to give you, you know, I mean, the whole idea is here is like, I can add the weight in the floor from that perspective. So here is the Tributary 9.5, and you'll just notice we're going to side surf here. And again, it doesn't buck. So that is a benefit to that, you know what I mean? So that's one of the biggest cons to, you know, just a lightweight non-water taking in floor boat. Cool. So after this, we're going to talk about rocker underneath the floor. We're going to look at the Alpaca Valkyrie and some of the Alpaca rafts. So hell yeah. So we're going to look at this footage. This is the Alpaca Valkyrie, and you can see that secondary edge. And it has a decent rocker tip to tail. That secondary edge is very similar to rocker like side to side. Now that is the opposite. That is hard. That's like railed. That'd be like a kayak that's railed, like hard. Well, now I'm just spitting out terms. But anyway, so just the fact that you can tip this onto edge gives it a rocker sideways under edge. And my boat does have this, and here's 3 clips of the Grand Canyon showing that. So I just lean in to, this is, what is this? Upset Rapid. And just leaning into this, my boat like tips. That left side does not purl. So that's kind of the take-home point here, is like, hey, I can lean into the wave, and if my boat was railed, you know, it might purl. That upstream tube might purl. So now here's kind of the downside of this, is the boat is definitely like ready to tip over. So that time I, you know what I mean, did the high side too early. Now here's gutter wave in Boise, and this shows you the water can go underneath the boat. You know what I mean? So compared to that arm, you know, compared to the standard railed boat, like that would purl, this thing's not purling. You know what I mean? So this thing underfoot is very similar to kind of the alpaca rafts. And that's kind of just what I'm showing, is just like the future of an R1 boat would be very similar to the underneath of an alpaca raft. And we're actually going to take a look at the comparison of what an alpaca looks like underfoot in 2 different versions. So here's one of the alpaca. This isn't the Valkyrie, unless they have just different numbers of the Valkyrie, and this is an older one, because this kayaker got the newest one. I don't have footage of that, but you'll see that when this kayaker rolls, that the floor is protruded. You know what I mean? And for small boats like these, there's no rhyme or reason. You know what I mean? It's just kind of bubbled underneath the floor, but you still get some edges. So here's a slow motion of my boat. Now, like, the floor isn't noticeably protruded, and I'll have to take a level to it just to see. But as this comes around, at least in the tip and tail, you know what I mean, we do have it sticking out very similar to this photo. So I have 8 seconds of this. So that top alpaca, even the front, the nose and the stern actually stick up out of the water. But hell yeah, you know what I mean? It's the floor isn't, my floor isn't super raised up. But here's the other downside though. You know what I mean? I just tip over. So the boat is a little bit tippy. That was the Skycomish. Alright, hell yeah. One more boat. This is the High Side Mini-Me. Now what I notice is that it tips up pretty easily. Now this is the only real footage I've seen of decent surf. Alright, hell yeah. I have to include this footage. So this is an alpaca, an older alpaca. This is Rodeo Hole in the Wenatchee. But what I notice the most, and even inner tubers can surf this and you'll just stay in there all day. You know what I mean, with like no experience. But this kayaker is efficiently edging. I mean, the boat is a bathtub. You know what I mean? But that means the weight of the person in it, the floor is going to be lower. It's not purling though. And so compared to the High Side Mini-Me in the very short clip, and my boat will just kind of buck vertically in this. So hell yeah. So this one gets quite a ride. And then we're going to take a look at some of my footage from Rodeo Hole. Alright, before that though, we got Grandma's Wave, and on the Wenatchee, what we're gonna see is that my boat for sure acts kind of like a dory. Narrow underfoot, the boat can turn, but it doesn't purl as much, and we can hang on to some surfs. So it doesn't, you know, go straight vertical. Hell yes. Now we're going to look at Rodeo Hole. Now this hole, we can get vertical, and we get the most vertical, like right there, just barely hang on. So that does happen. But then here, I'm able to effectively edge, and I kind of feel how much it's going to buck. And I think that's attributed to being able to, you know, sit on that outside tube, having that, you know, kind of hard-chined design underneath the boat. Secondary stability, hell yeah. So what we're going to look at here's a High Side Mini-Me, and it is railed underneath, you know what I mean? The floor isn't super inset, but we will notice that the outer tubes are lower. The floor is inside the boat. It's not protruded. And so, hell yeah. So we're going to take a look at boats that don't take in water in the floor again, and they can go vertical real easy. Now, those riders are on the low side, but the boat tips up. We're going to watch this in slow motion. So obviously not the best to be on the low side, but boat really purls. And so same wave, we're going to look at an air tributary, one that would have water in the floor. You know, same people maybe low-siding, half the boat's low-sided, and they do not go as vertical, hardly at all. You know, people fall out, sure, but that thing, so it's just if you have a floor that's lower, so when this is filled with water, the floor is lower. So what I'm saying is that you can have that attribute without a boat that has water in the floor, just with a floor that's a little bit lower. All right, last clip. This is a boil in the Grand Canyon, and we almost get swallowed up. And so if I had a hard-railed boat, heck, I'd be just tipping over right there and getting deep as hell. All right, so that's basically the video. So thanks for sticking with me. You know what I mean? I just wanted to share some of these R1, you know, raft design things that I have thought of, and hell yeah, you know what I mean? And I'm just passing the knowledge forward. I'm not interested in getting into any sort of manufacturing. That would be an impossibility for me. But I definitely like the physics, and this boat is so much fun to paddle in flat water. Like, I love just going out to the lake and check that out, just all the dynamics. And so it feels like I'm paddling, you know what I mean? This is the equivalent of a playboat, you know what I mean? And I'm even looking to get, you know, it would be sweet to get all the same features out of this, but even smaller, you know what I mean? Where you just feel like every paddle stroke is just awesome. So anyway, so thanks for joining me for R1 Raft Design. And even this, like, hey, you could have a bigger boat, but with these features, it would feel lighter. So that's kind of the take-home point. All right, thanks for joining me. That's a video.